trainer. He's also executive director of the Open Mind Training Institute in Santa Monica, offering personal and professional training programs and integrative mindfulness, body therapies, and transformational leadership. So we're in good company for the task at hand. Pioneer in the field of somatic psychotherapy, holistic psychology, mindfulness, and leadership coaching ever since 1970. He's been at some impressive venues. Many of us have been to Esalen. He's spoken there. Omega Institute, which is the East Coast equivalent of Esalen, and throughout many like-minded centers in Europe. So please give a warm Inside Edge welcome to Dr. Ron Alexander.
My father, who was a very staunch Irish Catholic Republican from Boston, which is where I'm from, and people in the neighborhood used to refer to him as a Nazi bunker. And after about the first 5 years, you know the guy on All in the Family? The first 5 years of my career as a psychologist in Santa Monica, he was a retired executive from AT&T and New England Telephone Company, and he would oftentimes call me up, and he'd say, Ronnie, I don't understand it. I've been talking to you for 30 years. Why do people pay you so much money to talk to you? I talk to you for free. And then about 5 years later, when I was very well involved with the teaching of mindfulness meditation and applying the principles of mindfulness to leadership in corporate and transformational consultation in the television, film, and record companies in Los Angeles, he'd call up and he'd say, Ronnie, put the television on. One of your competitors is on television. And it was Deepak Chopra. And he goes, this guy must be pushing a lot of product. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, he was on Larry King on Monday night, and he's on Oprah on Wednesday. He must be selling a lot of things these days. In his view, and he would tell all the neighbors that I was involved in corporate sales. And so after a while, whenever the neighbors would come over at Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'd say, yeah, I guess I'm involved in corporate sales of product, meditation. He couldn't really ever really grok it or understand it or even describe it. Once I was home for Thanksgiving, and I was out in the backyard, and I was doing yoga, and then I was doing some Zen meditation, and I started to do some Tai Chi. He opened the window and he went, Jesus, Mother of Christ, get in here before someone calls the police. So that gives you a little bit of the cultural context that I grew up in. And when I became ordained as a Zen monk in my 40s, and I brought the robe home to show my mother, he said, oh, geez, you better hide that. He says, don't let anybody see that. They'll put you in the local state hospital. So I'd like to start with a few quotes. And the way that I like to present is, even though I have a PowerPoint, I want to promise you I either may get to it, I may not get to it. I speak rather extemporaneously, but I do have in the middle of the PowerPoint, there's a series of Zen theorems that I've cultivated over the last 36 years that I'd like to impart to you. And if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint, write this down. Just write to my assistant. Just write to info@ronaldalexander.com. And it's about a 75-page PowerPoint on wise leadership. So info@ronaldalexander.com. And then my assistant, Dana, will send that out to you. Okay, this is a wonderful quote that I think is very inspiring whenever I'm talking about mindfulness and how to be a wise leader and a mindful leader. And it's from the Scottish Himalayan expedition of 1951. And I'm sure Dave Dolan here, who's about to climb Kilimanjaro for the, how many time? Seventh time. In my 20s, I also was a mountaineer, and I climbed Popocatépetl and Mount Washington and several mountains in Switzerland. Until one is committed, there's no hesitancy. The chance to draw back always ineffective, concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There's one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence proves all sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents in meetings and material assistance, which no man or woman can have dreamt would have come this way. This one's from Goethe. I have learned a deep respect. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Whatever you can do, dream, you can. Begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And this last one is from one of our own American writers, Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, dare to explore and to dream, dare to discover. 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, and catch the trade winds in your sails. Explore, dream, and discover. So I've been on a 8 to 10 month book tour of Wise Mind, Open Mind. And like most authors, after you finish one book, you already start thinking about, well, what's the next book going to be about? And as I've been traveling, people have been very interested in the concept of applying wise mind and open mind. And what does it mean to have a wise mind from a Buddhist perspective? And what does it mean from a creativity perspective to have an open mind? And more recently, I've been asked a lot to speak on the application of wise mind and what is mindfulness and how can you apply and utilize mindfulness as a leader, whether you're leading yourself. And one of the fundamental principles of wise leadership is what we call the management of your own self. Before you can manage anyone else, before you can lead anyone else, you have to learn to manage the self. And that begins with developing a respect and appreciation for what I call becoming aligned with your own core self. So what is a wise mind? In Boston, we know a wise ass. But a wise mind is a mind that is curious. A wise mind is a mind that has a quality of openness. A wise mind is a mind that is curious about wonder, and to have a sense of appreciation, of awe, an appreciation for the unfoldment of the mystery, an appreciation for exploring and setting sails, like the quote says, for the shores of the unknown. In wise leadership, when I'm brought into companies, I oftentimes talk about what's called the known and the not known. And in the book, Wise Mind, one of the things that I've written about extensively is, well, what causes people to not change? And when you're leading or you're managing people, why do people, when everybody wants to grow, and everybody says that they want to prosper, they want to be really creative, what causes individuals like ourselves, if we get bogged down and we stay stuck? And what is the fundamental root of staying stuck is three principles. One is that you're either holding on to the past. In what we call, in Buddhist psychology, that's a quality of clinging. So there's two fundamental principles in the concepts of understanding clinging and grasping, or what we call aversion. In clinging and grasping means that we find a formula, whether it's in relationship, whether it's in something that we're doing with creativity, or a formula of the way that we are in a relationship at work with the people that we lead or manage, and we repeat it. Now, as business leaders and entrepreneurs, most of the entrepreneurs and most of the most inspirational business leaders that I've worked with and coached individually, or brought in, for example, when I was brought into Walt Disney Studios shortly after the ending of the Epcot project. And I was brought in because a lot of the producers and the directors that were involved in the building, in the creating of Epcot itself in Florida, and the creation of all the films that went into that theme park, they started to get depressed. They started to feel depressed, almost like a postpartum depression. And they didn't, because that was Walt Disney's last vision. And Walt Disney, what made him very magical and made him very creative as a leader is that he always had another vision. So a wise leader is someone like Noah of Noah's Ark. Noah had a bigger project. So be like Noah. Take care of in the moment, as we say in Zen, be here now, and put all of your focus and your attention on what it is that you're building and growing now. But step out into the future, like Noah, or like Walt Disney, and have what we call in transformational leadership training, have a greater context. Have a project, something that you can pull either yourself from the moment into the future towards, or you can pull the people that you're leading and managing towards. So there's this concept of what causes us to hold on and to stay stuck. Well, part of it is we cling and we grasp to that of which is familiar, that of which is the known. Now, we wouldn't all be here if, for example, Columbus listened to the familiar, because everybody said, the world's flat, the ships are going to fall off, and the rest is history. But Columbus had this innate sense where he really listened to himself and he trusted. He said, I don't think it's flat. I think it's round. And he followed that. So if you're going to break out of the zone of what's familiar, you have to be willing to listen to the voice inside of yourself and to trust it. So principle number one is a wise leader trusts themselves. Principle number two is a wise leader takes time, whether it's through practicing mindfulness, some form of meditation, contemplation, prayer, whatever is your way. Taoists, for example, they have what we call the non-form way. They go into nature. Taoists don't sit and meditate with their eyes closed or pray to any kind of a divine being or whatever. Taoists immerse themselves in nature, and they respect and appreciate silence. The third fundamental principle of a wise leader is a wise leader appreciates, respects, and takes time daily to sit in silence. And something I've been doing for 40 years. Now, I have another funny story. In my junior year, I transferred from the University of Massachusetts in Boston to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst so that I could minor in Buddhist studies at Smith College and study psychology and partake in what was called the 5 college program. So I go out to Amherst, and I was one of 10 children, large Irish Catholic family, very competitive, played sports, a lot of jousting around the family table, close-knit. And I get to the dorm, and I'm living in a dorm with thousands of students, and I'm there for 5 days, and I can't sleep. And my hands are sweating, and I'm having panic attacks. And I didn't even know what was happening. All I knew is I don't feel good. This doesn't feel good. So I went to the student infirmary, and they said, well, I think you should come back on Monday and have an appointment and have an intake to have some counseling. So the young woman who did the intake with me, she said, well, I'm going to give you two choices. You can either meet with a young 28-year-old psychologist who has just spent the last 2 years in Asia studying meditation, or you can meet with our 65-year-old psychiatrist who will give you medication. Now, I was probably one of the few students in the 60s who said no to free drugs. So I had heard about meditation because I was involved in the music business, playing in a band as an adolescent. And I heard that the Beatles and even the Beach Boys here from Southern California went off with the Maharishi to study meditation. And medication sounded like, whoa, that's really scary. So I said, I'll take the meditation. And so I was enrolled with this young psychologist. He sat on the floor. He had pillows. It was very, very, very Asian and Eastern. And we meditated. And then that began really my career in the aspect of mindfulness. Was through treating my own anxiety. And I noticed in the course of 2 or 3 weeks that scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like you can't sleep and you're sweating all the time, it went down to about 3 or 4. And I was immediately taken in by that. I said, I can change my own brain physiology. And mindfulness is a method that we're now studying at UCLA, at the Seminole Institute, at the MARC Center, Mindfulness Awareness Research Center at UCLA. Dr. Richard Davidson, someone that we were studying meditation in Amherst, him and Daniel Goleman, the author that wrote Emotional Intelligence and Emotional Intelligence in the Workplace. Him and Richard Davidson were researching meditation at Harvard through the School of Social Divinity, and we would kind of go back and forth and trade notes. Mindfulness is also being studied by Richard Davidson out at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. There's a woman called Dr. Sarah Lazar. She's studying mindfulness and using PET scans and CAT scans to actually study what happens with the brain. So I'm going to give you just a few pieces of neuroscience and then segue back into some more principles of the mindful leader. When you meditate, what's absolutely phenomenally interesting is there are 3 very essential parts of your brain that are important to know about. One is in the very center of your brain. It's called the amygdala, and it's like a small walnut. And it's really the center. It's like your thumb. So if you could think of, if you roll your thumb like this and you put your fingers on top, the amygdala is the thumb part in the center of your brain. And these 2 fingers here on the left are your left prefrontal cortex. And these 2 fingers on the right are your right prefrontal cortex. Optimistic, hopeful, visionary, and imaginative leaders, artists, creators, and individuals. Primarily, when we do a CAT scan or a PET scan on the brain, where you see most of the brain lighting up is in the left prefrontal cortex. And individuals who tend to be more see the glass half empty, depressive, pessimistic, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. You say, how are things going? What do you think about the future of the world? Oh, gee, terrible, It's like your Jewish grandmother. Oh, God, it's all going downhill. The right prefrontal cortex, interestingly enough, though, has an aspect in it where there are neural pathways that are responsible for thinking outside of the box. So what we've discovered, which is absolutely mesmerizing, is that if you take individuals who are functioning from a low level to a medium level of depression, and they're primarily located in their right prefrontal cortex, that within 4 to 8 weeks, not putting in the cognitive behavioral therapy or the medication yet, just teaching them mindfulness, is that they will switch in the neuronal pathways that lock in being pessimistic, moody, depressive, will open up neuronal pathways into the left prefrontal cortex, which is about optimism. This one? Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, are we up? All right. So this doctor who I met, I was speaking at UCLA at the mindfulness conference, Dr. Sarah Lazar, she decided to study Tibetan lamas who had been practicing mindfulness for over 30 years. And she got a unique idea to also study fraternity boys at MIT who had no interest in meditation, and you can just imagine what they were interested in, right? And she found in a group of 7, over a course of 8 weeks of training them in mindfulness, and this is a phenomenal outcome, that 3 of the 7, beer drinking, partying, girl seeking, were able to attain the same level of heightened and refined concentration in what we call a first level of samadhi or enlightened awareness as the Tibetan lamas who had been practicing for 30 years. Now, what that means for us as leaders is it means that we don't have to go off, and I'm not discouraging, of course, if anybody wants to go off to a monastery or go around Asia. I've done it most of my life, and it's a thrilling experience. And I'm sure Dave has also done it, trek in Nepal and Bhutan and climb mountains. It's an extraordinary experience. But what it means is that in your own home, you can sit either on a meditation cushion or in a chair, or if you have pain, you can lay down if need be. And you can turn on the third important part of the brain, which is called the mid-insula. And it's right in front of the amygdala. And so Dr. Lazar discovered that as you practice mindfulness meditation, the old view of the mind and of development, particularly from adolescence into old age, was that we were hardwired. We had a certain amount of brain cells, and the bad news, as we get older and older, the old view was we fade to black, and the brain cells get less and less and less and less. With mindfulness meditation and the new research on neuroscience, what we're discovering is the total opposite of that. That as you practice mindfulness meditation, or you engage, and so I'm going to open it up so that you don't think that's like the only thing, but if you engage in activities that create stimulation, like if you're 60 years old and you learn to play tennis, or you get involved in chess, or you go to a brain gym, they call them mind-brain gyms, or you start to
get immersed in studying computer science, that you open up new neuronal pathways. And it's not thousands of brain cells that we are capable of producing, but millions. And over time, Dr. Lazar discovered that in the mid-insula, by practicing mindfulness meditation and/or some other activities of complexity, the mid-insula gets thicker. And what that means is that we are producing millions and millions of new brain cells, so that as we age, we no longer have to adopt that old view that older people fade to black. For example, I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, many, many times. Right towards the very end of his life at Esalen, he was teaching a seminar in one room. I was teaching a seminar in another room. We were sitting and talking, and he remembered he had met me as a very young man at Amherst. And he was 84, and he was sharp as a tack. He was as sharp as me and probably sharper. And he remembered where we met. He remembered what we talked about. And I was very taken by that. So I said, you know, Joe, I know that you've never been a long-term meditator as I am. What do you do to stay sharp? And he said, I do things that create complexity. I engage my brain, my mind. I play chess. I do crossword puzzles. I do anything that stimulates my brain. So the wise leader, okay, coming all the way full circle back, a wise leader is somebody who creates a sense of excitement, who creates a sense of opportunity, who has a view that when leading or managing people, it's like a wonderful gardener who farms and tends to and cultivates and grows people. So the mindful, wise leader is somebody that is not only interested in the bottom line, but is also interested in the growth and the transformation of people in a mindful and a heart-oriented way. How many minutes do I have? 10? Okay. So with 10 minutes, I think what I'm going to do is do something experiential with you so that we at least have 5 minutes of that, and then try to get through a few of the Zen theorems that I've cultivated, okay? And then give you some time for question and answers. So if everybody could just sit up straight, put your feet on the floor, let go of anything that you're writing or holding with, and then just take the palms of your hands and put them either palms facing down, thumb and first finger together, or palms facing upward. And all we're going to do is a very simple mindfulness meditation. And if you already have a spiritual discipline, or you come from another spiritual orientation, this will not create any conflict with whatever you do practice. For example, let's say you do transcendental meditation. Simply close your eyes now and let your eyelids look down. And if anyone is uncomfortable about closing their eyes, you can keep your eyes open and look down on the floor. So have your eyes focus at the tip of your nose, either open or closed. It's better closed, but you can do it open. And then just find your breath and begin to breathe long, slow, and deep into your abdomen and then up into your lungs. And as you're doing that, mentally repeat the word arising. So long, slow, and deep, arising on the in-breath. And then let the breath go all the way out through your nose and repeat the word falling away. So the cycle is arising, on the in-breath. Abdomen, lungs, and then let it go, emptying your lungs, emptying your abdomen, falling away. And then take a moment and just hang out and experience the word spaciousness. And it helps in the beginning if you actually mentally repeat spaciousness. Because where we're moving and evolving to in mindfulness practice is to explore spaciousness and what we call eternal freedom. And that's where all core creativity arises from. So arising on the in-breath, long, slow, and deep. Falling away on the out-breath. And then dropping in and just sitting in silence, in spaciousness. And that's where the wise leader begins to cultivate and to grow and to plant seeds, to go to the source, to resource creatively at one's core. And you can imagine that one's core is like a very creative, majestic, or divine river of time that flows through the delta of one's psyche. And all of the great musicians, all of the great artists, the poets, the thinkers, the creators, the inventors, the visionary leaders like Gandhi, JFK, Plato, they all spent some time each and every day in this space of quietude. It's a space that is always available to you to enter into and to receive from. And to be in a place of receptivity. Many of you are in a mode where you're searching. You're searching for the next form or the next project. Many of you are in a place where you're at a place of completion. And it's time to integrate and not move on to something new. And some of you are simply in a mode where it's a transition. You're waiting for the link, like the link in a chain, to create a bridge from one form of life or work that you've been involved in to go across the river of time of your life and to move into the next season or the next stage of your life. It's called entering into the unknown. Experience of the fertile void. To experience knowing that you don't need to know sometimes. A wise leader trusts in the capacity to let go of knowing and to be curious about taking the inner journey on the river of time, along the timeline of your life, deep into the uncharted waters and territories of your inner being. to know that it's okay, that we don't need to always know. And isn't it wonderful to know what we do know? But to be equally curious about exploring what we don't know through the silence and the richness of that silence as a way of drinking at the spiritual well of creativity and inspiration. The wise leader recognizes and appreciates and trusts that he or she needs to drink from this well, this great well of being, each and every day. And to imagine when you're sitting in silence each day that you're receiving the nutrients and the minerals and the nourishment from the water. And that thousands and millions of other like-minded beings are also nurturing their beings from this well, in the silence, waiting, appreciating, and respecting. And that as we go deeper into this space, we always want to pair the quality of attention with intention. There's an old philosophical saying, set your mind on what you want and it will manifest. Pairing attention and intention. Set your mind on what you want and it will manifest. And lastly, each and every day, ask these 4 questions and either write about them. You can open your eyes now. You might want to write them down. Why? Why not? Why not me? And why not now? So why? Why not? Why not me? And why not now? All right, I want to end with, and then we're going to take 5 minutes, right? With a quote, like I said, another Goethe quote. It's called, "We are the decisive element. I've come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make life miserable or joyful. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate, hurt, or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis is escalated or de-escalated, and a person is humanized or dehumanized. If we treat someone as the limited person they think they are, we support their sense of limitation. If we treat people as who we could be and as who they could be, we help them become all that they are capable of becoming. If we treat people as who they could be and as who we can be, we help them become all that they are capable of becoming." Okay, any questions, comments?
I found that the word ascend worked beautifully. When you used the term fall, I thought, no, I don't want to fall. I want to move into spaciousness. That word didn't work for me.
Okay, great. Thanks. Next question. I'll comment.
What are your thoughts about using this method to actually positively affect mass consciousness around the world?
I think it's a wonderful method. There was an actual study, not with mindfulness, but with transcendental meditation. Do we have any TM meditators in the room? About 10 or 15 years ago, they sent 2,000 people to live in Washington, D.C., and to do a 10-year study on whether crime would increase, stay the same, or decrease. And whether it was attributed to the 2,000 meditators who went there to live, or the police force got increased, we don't know, but the TM, they did an outcome study, and crime did decrease. My own personal feeling, just as a meditator, is I think if each of us took time every day, once or twice a day, we would change everything on the planet. Because I become more aware, I become more sensitive. When I'm standing at the bank, and the Bostonian in me starts getting really impatient, because I got to get back and see a patient in 10 minutes. And the person in front of me is talking to the teller about that she just found this new person that does her nails in a terrific way. And I become mindful, and I go through the judgment, and then I go, she's expressing her joy. And I need to be understanding of that. So I think it helps to apply mindfulness to mindful parenting. Certainly when I'm hanging out and I'm working with my kids, I'm a much better parent because I can slow down and I can be mindful. I think mothers can be more mindful when they're mothering and they're trying to get their 4-year-old or their 6-year-old dressed and all they want to do is sleep. We can be more mindful in our relationships with the people that we love. This one right here. Yeah, you.
I work at a children's hospital with catastrophically injured and illness children. And I was wondering, would this help them with their injuries and illness? Because many of them just live at the hospital for many years.
I don't know, because you used the word catastrophic. What I do know is I've been training a group of therapists who work with Iraq soldiers returning, men and women who are brain damaged and injured at the New Jersey Veteran Administration Hospital. And the vets have been telling the people that I'm training that it is helping them to feel less pain and to be able to separate from the pain. Because one of the things that IEDs create is it causes trauma to the brain. And there's no pain medication for that kind of swelling that goes on when an IED goes off. But what mindfulness can effectively do is it can teach you to separate and to actually watch yourself be in the pain. And then as you separate, you can see the pain decreasing. And that's called pain management. Okay, over here.
I'd like to know your experience of bringing this to the corporate world and how the reception's been and how they're using it.
Okay, the reception's been fabulous over the last 20 years. I'll give you a brief vignette. The more extensive explanation, of course, it's in my book. I was brought into one of the record companies, and I was supposed to teach them mindfulness. And I was sitting at a meeting, and my job for the first 20 minutes was just to observe and write down what I noticed. I noticed that the word no was used 76 times in 20 minutes, and the word yes was used, guess how many times? 6. So I just reported that to them. And then I came back the next week, and I also taught them mindfulness at the end of the meeting. I happened to be late. And so I got there and I said, we don't really have time to do the mindfulness, so let's just, jump in. unanimously, everybody in the meeting said, no, 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 no. Let's do that quiet, silent stuff first. And in that meeting, the ratio, and I wrote about it in the book, the ratio of yes was 54 yeses, and there was about 20 no's. So it works very, very effectively in corporate America. Okay, thank you very much. You've been a delightful audience.